This is Justin.
And this is Haley, and you're listening to The Price of Avocado Toast.
We're a married millennial couple wanting to normalize conversations about money. We want to hear about your highs and your lows,
The do's and the don'ts on your path towards financial freedom. Hi Toasties, welcome to The Price of Avocado Toast.
Whether you're a first-time listener or you've been following us from the start of this thing, we're so glad to have this conversation with you today. Welcome back, listeners. It is episode 4 of season 2. We're so glad you're here. Before we dive into our episode on sacrifice, we just wanted to ask something of all of you listeners out there, whether you're new or somebody that's been following us from the start of this thing. If you would be so kind, could you please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and go ahead and rate or review our pod? It really helps us generate more listeners and spread this conversation and get more people comfortable talking about money. If reviews and ratings on our podcast, whether they're good or bad, are higher in number. So if you've got a free second, we would so appreciate you doing that.
And we have officially surpassed 20,000 downloads, so let's cheers to that.
Woohoo! Cheers to 20,000 downloads. Cheers to the next 20,000.
I can't believe 20,000.
Yeah, that's pretty rad. I mean, we've mentioned, that we didn't know who was going to listen to this. It's been a really fun hobby for us, and it's helped us and holding us accountable. But it's just cool that 100 or whatever people each week want to listen to us talk. Like, that's really cool.
I mean, I have never spoken in front of 500 people, and at one time, and there are over 500 people that come back every week to listen, and that's really cool.
That feels really good.
Because if that were in person, I think I would shit myself.
Okay, I mean, we're both teachers. I said the other day, we like public speaking. I like public speaking. I don't know. I might be like, wow, this is really cool. Y'all showed up, but I don't know.
I don't know about that. I'd rather stay behind the mic. I mean, this mic.
Yeah.
Where you can't see me.
Not the public speaking mic where your
Not
face
the podium.
is there too?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I think you'd be great, honey.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so last week we did a giveaway. Nora's Wandering Ways on Instagram won. So we are going to be shooting her over a 60-minute massage.
Yes, self-care.
So she can enjoy some self-care. I just want to also, before we really dive into this episode, give a fat shout out to my mom, and your brother and our sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
Because last week, they all listened. We were not harassing people, begging them to listen. They listened completely on their own and text us just being like, hey, that's a great episode. It's just really cool knowing that people are listening. So
very cool.
Whoever you are, thanks for being part of the 20,000.
Woohoo!
Whoop, whoop. All right, so we're going to be talking today about sacrifice. And this is a fun thing to talk about after self-care. And I think that that's because self-care is like all the fun things that you can integrate into your budget and prioritize into your budget. But like we talked about last week, you want all these things, but you can't necessarily have them all at the same time.
You just sparked a memory in me. You said the coolest thing the other day while we were driving, much like Paula Pant's phrase, you can afford anything, but you can't afford everything. You said, I want people to understand that they can have it all. They just can't have it all at once. And I was like, oh my God, dude, that is so like hashtagable. That's such a brilliant thing to say. Like, it was just really cool. So you're totally right, though. Self-care is important, and you can do all those things with the right budgeting and trying to make it work, but you can't do it all at the same time. And we had a really good conversation afterwards, too, that I think we should preface everything with. Not only our self-care episode, but this sacrifice episode. If there's a genuine income problem, or if you're struggling to make ends meet truly, we don't want to come off as condescending or greater than or anything like that. We want people to understand, like, we're talking about when there's an outgo problem, meaning you have a spending issue. Maybe you're not budgeting right. Maybe you're just, need to get some priorities straight. But both of us come from single families or, single moms until your mom remarried. Like, there was an income problem at some point. A single mom can't work that many jobs and have somebody watch her kid with the cost of childcare nowadays. So we don't want people to ever think that we're coming from this higher ground with our nose up. We recognize that there are just some times in life where you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to get to the next, month, so you got a roof over your head and food on the table.
Mhm.
And so as we continue to talk about sacrifice in this episode, I really want people to understand where we're coming from. As much as I love, talking to all listeners, I don't want those listeners to feel like we're singling them out,
Mhm.
because that's hard.
Yeah, because the sacrifice is a whole nother level when you literally don't have any more hours in the
Mm-hmm.
day. And if you took on a second job, like a single parent taking care of their child, if they were to take on 2 or 3 jobs, they would never see their child.
Ever.
And that's not worth it.
Nothing's worth it.
So that is not who we're talking to with this
Mm-mm.
episode. You please continue to listen, but just know that we are not telling you to go sacrifice everything you have just to get out of debt or to get ahead. There are certain things you can do, but that's definitely not what our goal is.
Yeah, and I would say, just as crazy and like maybe hippie as this sounds, just know that like we're here for you, and we love you, and we care about you, because that stuff's hard. We
Yeah.
both saw it in our families when there's a genuine, income problem, and again, you're just trying to get through the day. You're just trying to make sure kids are fed and the lights are on, and we get that. So if you're listening and you're feeling like you're in that spot, we're here for you. If we can help at all, if we can just be a listening ear, if there's anything we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out, because that's who we both are. It goes back to our idea in season 1 of wanting to be givers when we
Mhm.
are so blessed and have, the opportunities that we do. So we're here for you.
Definitely. That's a good message. You're a good human.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
You
I want to
do.
be a good role model for our girls,
Yeah,
It's hard. It's hard.
you're doing a good job.
Well, thanks.
High five.
All right, but today we do have to talk about sacrifice. And this is so important coming after the self-care episode, because it's what really kickstarted Haley and I's financial journey. We realized that we weren't getting ahead, even though we were finally both in really well-paying careers, statistically speaking. Well, maybe not statistically speaking for teachers, but in our county, good enough with 2 incomes. And we still weren't getting ahead. And we realized we needed to make some sacrifices if we wanted to get on the right path. And those sacrifices were important in kickstarting how our journey's gone. So we felt we should share the process of making those sacrifices, how it worked for us, and maybe some action steps of what others can do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, let's talk some numbers. Once we both started working, we were making. You also had a second job, but
Mhm.
that year we made almost $120,000.
Yeah.
And that's not much money from where we came from in Sonoma County, but in the grand scheme of like the whole United States, that's decent money. And we didn't know what we were doing because we had all this money and we had no idea how to handle it.
Mhm.
And so that's where the sacrifice truly came in. Like, okay, we didn't have an income problem anymore. We had a saving problem, a budgeting problem, a spending problem, a
Mhm.
mindset problem.
Yes.
And so that's where the sacrificing really got started. So when people are trying to sacrifice things, there's a lot of things that get in the way.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is like this image that people portray on social media that everything is perfect. Keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
These people have everything. I want all of those things. I'm following all these influencers and they live in these beautiful houses. They drive these beautiful cars. They have beautiful, perfect kids. And that's just not the reality, but we have social media just shoving down our throats all the time that like there's this perfect life that we can strive to have, but they don't talk about how they got there.
Yeah. There's a really cool movie, and I think it's called Keeping Up with the Joneses. I think it's like starring David Duchovny. And I watched it at your mom's house the first time you ever brought me home to meet your mom.
Really?
Yeah, which shout out, that was super cool because now we're married and we have a family. But yeah, I watched it at your mom's house. It was just playing as you guys were like making soup in the kitchen. And it's this really interesting movie where a family is essentially product, marketers, and I shouldn't say family, these people, these actors are product marketers, and they portray a family, go into wealthy neighborhoods and push all these products, and then the neighbors want to keep up with the Joneses. And it's a really interesting movie and kind of how we do all that. And there's some really vulnerable moments that go on. But you're so right. It's this culture that we have to have what other people have. We're envious, we're greedy. We see something, we want it. I mean, it's just this social media culture that is so strong and so pervasive because we only see the best of people. We
Mm-hmm.
never see the worst, which again is a big reason for us sharing our story because we want people to know we have hard times. Now, we've been really blessed, but we still had difficult times and difficult things to go through. But social media only shows the good things. And that's really hard. And that can make it hard to make sacrifices because you're constantly comparing against other people.
Yeah. And their perfect little lives.
Yeah. And they're perfect, in quotation, little
Yeah,
lives.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I now being on the other side, I frequently think when I see things like that, what are they hiding? Are they in debt? How did they get there? You know, you never know what's genuine and authentic.
Yeah.
Or if they are about to default on their mortgage. Like, you literally never know. But everyone just, I shouldn't say everyone, but social media really is a huge part of that.
And it makes it easier to do that with things such as, Instagram filters
Mm-hmm.
or, reels that are just brief snippets of somebody's life. You're not getting the full 24-hour snapshot.
Yeah.
It makes it really easy to do that stuff. So another thing that could make it hard to make sacrifices is just the simple fact that we're creatures of habit. Once human beings start a tendency or start a habit, it gets really hard to kick that. And we're not even just talking about, different habits like maybe you're a smoker and that's an actual addiction, right? We're talking about habits like, maybe on your way to work every morning, you go the same route and grab McDonald's every single morning, right? Well, that $7 McDonald's breakfast isn't that bad that one morning. But over the course of a week, if you're working 5 days a week, that's $35 on breakfast that week. And you times that over an entire month of 4 weeks, you're spending $140 on just breakfast. And that's a lot of money. You could save that and maybe do something else with it. Maybe pay a bill, maybe put it towards something else that's a little bit more important or more in line with your priorities. But we're creatures of habit, and those habits create comfortable feelings for us. Recently when I was starting to try and drop some weight, I started to ask myself whenever I was wanting a snack or wanting dessert, okay, what is my head or my heart trying to stop me from feeling right now? What am I trying to escape from? Because that's always been my habit with food. Maybe I was stressed, maybe I was tired, maybe I was burned out, maybe I was happy. But I was like, okay, if I'm going to get that snack, I'm still going to eat the snack, but I'm at least going to acknowledge these feelings. And it wasn't just going to be habitual snacking. I was going to own whatever I was feeling. And I think that as creatures of habit, we can do that in our budget world as well. If you want to get McDonald's every morning and that's in your budget, go ahead. But ask yourself, what is this stopping me from feeling or thinking? Okay, I'm going to get breakfast on the way to work because my boss makes things difficult and I really love having that iced coffee to help me take a breath as I'm drinking so I don't spout out something mean, right? And it's like, okay, cool. That's good. If that's your habit that helps you from popping off at your boss, that's great. But as long as we recognize those feelings, it's important. And when we don't, we become creatures of habit and it's not sustainable and it can make it really hard to make a sacrifice.
Okay, I just thought of a habit that I have that I'm constantly trying to adjust.
Yeah.
And it is Amazon.
Yes.
And I want something, so I put it in my cart, and I have, no joke, like 140 things saved in my cart.
I saw that the other day when you asked me to buy my labels. You're like, put the labels in the cart. And I'm like, I'm seeing like there's legit over 100 things in there.
Yeah.
I was kind of proud for a moment. And then I thought, wait a minute. There's still a lot of Amazon stuff in our garage recycling pile.
Those are all of the things that I've put in there and then thought, okay, I don't need this right now. I'm going to save it, and then later I can get it if I still want it. But it's so easy. It's so easy to I want something or I need something. I'm going to go buy it right now. I can literally go swipe add right now, and I don't even have to put in billing information.
Wow.
One swoop, and it says, thank you for your order.
Wow.
And it's so hard to acknowledge, like, okay, I have a legit Amazon problem.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to kick it. In fact, I've honestly thought, like, you should change the Amazon password, and I don't have it for a whole month, but I've actually been doing better. So
You have, yeah.
So I'm trying because I'm aware that this is a habit. Spending, it's not even like overspending. It's like, I need this right now type of a thing. And so, I mean, I'm sure I can justify anything being put in the budget somewhere, but that's not the problem. It's the habit of like getting on my phone and ordering it right this very second. There's not even getting in the car to go to the store to buy it anymore. I don't even have to do anything. I sit there and buy it. So it's like, This is crazy. So that's a habit that I know a lot of people struggle with, myself seriously included.
I want to give you credit though, because you did just say something important. You've done well this month on the budget in like the miscellaneous and Calliope and Kennedy funds. And so I'm recognizing you are not overspending. You're doing a really good job there, and you should give yourself credit. I recognize like
Thank
it's
you.
like the immediate need of something,
Yeah.
or like the immediate gratification that you need. Like, okay, cool, it's on its way. But nonetheless, you've done a really good job of sorting it and sticking to the budget. So shout out you. I will give you credit.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you
I
should give
think that
yourself some credit.
that's because the move made us go so far red in the miscellaneous, and then we had the baby. So then June, the children's line item went way over.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to be very aware of those two areas, because we have 3 areas that we constantly go red in: miscellaneous, the children, food.
Food. Yeah.
That's why they're starred at the top of the budget.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, pay attention to this, you guys.
Okay, another thing that people really struggle with, myself included, and this kind of stems from, I don't know. I think some of it stems from the pressure that I felt following Dave Ramsey, and I don't know if everyone feels that same pressure, but there was a lot of guilt and shame and feelings of like failure when it came to sacrifice. Like having to get rid of something out of the budget when you don't want to get rid of it can be embarrassing.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Hey, why can't you come hang out?" And it's not always comfortable to say, "Hey, I'm on a budget," or "I'm $10,000 in debt. I can't afford this." And so there a lot of those feelings come up. So people don't want to sacrifice because they don't want to feel guilt, embarrassment, shame, failure. They don't want to feel those things.
I got a text message from an educator today who said, "My district has asked me to go get certified."
This was funny.
Has asked me to go get certified in a particular thing, and it's over $2,000. So I told my district, that's not in my budget right now. My family can't afford that. And this educator's district is going to be paying for that person to get that certification.
Wow.
I know. And I was like, that is so cool that they said, that's not in my budget. I mean, can you imagine saying that straight up to an employer? Like, I can't get that certification. That's not in my budget. I was really proud of them.
That wasn't what I thought was funny.
Oh.
What I thought was funny was when you were texting them about the table and they said that they'd make payments for $10.
No, that was pretty funny though, yeah. I was selling a table I wasn't selling a table. I left a table at my old job, and I was thinking I was going to go back and get it, but I was like, maybe one of my old colleague wants it. And our HR manager reached out and said, "Hey, we actually have a need for that in a classroom. Are you cool if we keep it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great." She's like, "Great. If you said you bought it for $10 on Craigslist, I can pay you $10 as long as we can pay in monthly installments." I thought, wow, if that isn't the best microcosm of the American education system. I know she was joking, but it was pretty funny.
It was
But
really
no,
funny.
yeah, I was sharing that an educator, mentioned to their employer, "That's not in our budget. I can't do that." And their employer said, "Well, we're going to take care of it then because we value you."
That's
I thought
pretty
that was cool. But you're right. Guilt and shame and embarrassment makes it hard for us to make sacrifices because it's those feelings of not good enough. And I think genuinely we all want to be loved and accepted and celebrated and felt as though we are good enough. And it can be really hard to not compare and feel that way.
And you made a good point when we talked about this the other day in the car, that sharing our story and being so outwardly public about everything makes it easier.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's nothing being hidden.
No.
So I don't feel the feelings that I used to feel about guilt and shame and embarrassment because I know we're doing something good and we're sharing it. And my whole mission for this whole podcast and everything is to normalize conversations about money. We are not the only people that have been in debt.
Yeah.
We're the only people I know that
blew $600,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they might have done something else, so we can talk about these things. We don't need to feel guilty and shameful, but people do. And so that's why they don't go as far to sacrifice things.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
So let's talk about some of the sacrifices we've made over the last couple of years.
Love that, because we've made several.
Let's start small. So one of the smallest ones, it sounds small, but this was really hard. It's still hard, was drastically cutting our restaurant, like going out to eat budget. In fact, there was no budget when we started.
There wasn't.
It was ridiculous. We spent we first started budgeting and we went back into our bank and we're tracking how much we spent on groceries and stuff. And that first month was about $700 eating out, not on groceries.
Yeah, simply eating out.
From going out to dinner and breakfast and grabbing lunch and Starbucks and
Yeah.
$700. We don't even budget $700 now for groceries.
Yeah. That's wild.
So that was eye-opening. And that has been an area that we've struggled with since we got started, because we like food, and you've mentioned that before. You really like to cook, and you cook really cool things, so we don't just buy minimal things.
Yeah, but it was really important for us too when we were going out to breakfast or going out to dinner to enjoy those moments with one another,
Yeah.
having a nice meal, having community, being with people that we love and care about and sharing a good meal. And it was those feelings of fulfillment that came from those meals that was really driving us constantly going out and doing that. So it was really hard for us to stop that. That was like our Saturday morning thing, was going out to breakfast together and having a really nice button to the end of our week. And we cut that immediately. I miss going out to breakfast with you. Now, obviously, we have babies, and it makes it hard, to go out to eat. So maybe the girls helped us a little bit there. Maybe COVID helped us a little bit there. But that was a hard sacrifice for us when we finally made that decision. That was, early. That was 5 months before COVID shut everything down. So for almost half a year, we just cut out breakfast completely. Everything was at home. And that was difficult for us. That was a hard sacrifice that we had to make. And so if you're listening and you're thinking, okay, restaurants or going out to eat is one of my things, I'm going to challenge you to maybe just cut one meal.
Yeah, like one day.
Yeah, just cut one day.
Or yeah, if you're going out to eat or getting takeout 3 times a week, that's like your average. Try to just do it 2.
Yeah.
And start small, because that is a hard one. And I know just from talking to all of you on Instagram, food is the hardest line item for everybody, whether it's eating out or groceries and sticking to that, because that comes back to the instant gratification. I want something, so I'm going to go get it right now, and someone else is going to cook it for me, and I don't have to do anything.
Yep.
Except for pay them.
Or I'm going to get it DoorDashed or Uber Eats to my place, and I don't even have to think.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So another thing that we had to sacrifice, and we've mentioned this often, was selling our paid off cars. We had a 2016 RAV4, a 2018 Toyota 4Runner. They were both paid off. We owned them free and clear, and we decided that we were going to be able to jumpstart our debt by selling these vehicles. Literally 4 days after Calliope was born, we got home, and the next day I sold my vehicle. The next day I sold my SUV. We were down to one car only with a newborn, and that's not a huge problem, I guess. But it maybe wasn't, the wisest move. But it was a sacrifice that we needed to make to jumpstart some things. So we sold a paid-off vehicle, paid off some credit card debt with it, and kept a little bit aside and got my Honda Civic Hybrid that I now drive. And it's a great little car for, $5,000. But selling that car was really important. And then we obviously documented on the Price of Avocado Toast when we sold your dream car, the 4Runner. And you told me for years that this was your dream car.
It was.
And you were the one that brought up selling it. So
it was, and I think I brought up selling the RAV too. And I don't really remember when it switched for me. I don't really remember when I was like, let's freaking go and do this like full force. But something happened. And I started thinking in a way that I had never thought before.
Yeah.
And one of them was to sell the car. We followed Dave Ramsey. We no longer follow him. But one of the things he talks about is sell your car. Whether it is getting rid of a debt, like a car loan, selling it and downgrading, or selling something that's paid off so you can use that to pay debt off. And that's exactly what we did with your car. And I don't know, something just switched. And I was like, let's do this.
Yeah.
It was my dream car, I have to say. But now it's not. My dream car is the one that we drive now. And it's 14 years old.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that car.
That's really interesting, too. You said the 4Runner was your dream car, and now the Suburban is your dream car. And it just kind of shows that when your mindset changes and your value system changes, things like that can happen. Where it's like, I no longer desire this one thing. This other thing is enough. And at the point of enough in life, when I have enough, maybe not too little or too much, but when I have just enough, life is smooth. Life is good. And that's just such an interesting point that you brought up. And I actually want to give our listeners a rundown of the numbers. Are you cool with me sharing those?
Am I cool?
All right, so we
Yes.
sold the RAV4 for $16,000, and that guy actually said, I was going to offer you 15, but you just had a baby, so I'll give you 16. gave me 16,000. We saved 5,000 for the Honda and threw 11,000 at our credit card debt and paid that off. And then we sold your 4Runner for 32,000, kept 8,000 aside to buy the Suburban, and then paid off 24,000 of debt there. So between the two cars, we paid off $35,000 worth of debt by selling those vehicles. Now, we bought those, and they're what got us into debt. So it's not like we paid them off and made all this money. We paid them off to get out of debt. But that was a big sacrifice to pay off these, or to sell these paid off vehicles that we had, great service, history on, that were going to last a long, long time, that were going to carry their resale value for a long, long time.
We're going to give these cars to our kids.
Yeah.
I do want to say there's a lot of privilege coming from being able to sell a car that is paid off.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are new here, Justin received a large lump sum. It's not really an inheritance. It was like a
wrongful death suit.
There we go. Like a lawsuit payout for the wrongful death of his grandmother. So he received that and was able to buy the RAV outright.
Yeah.
So you never got a loan on that.
No.
But then we did get a $50,000 loan, $50,000 loan on the 4Runner.
Yep.
The reason that was paid off was because we did a thing I do not recommend. I don't recommend this, don't do it. But we borrowed against our house. We did a cash out refinance and put money to pay the car off.
Yeah.
So we had 2 paid off cars. I know a lot of people are not in the situation to sell paid off cars because they have car loans. So that's just, I want to say that there's a lot of privilege coming from our situation.
Yeah. But if you are somebody who has a car loan and you need some help, maybe considering some ideas or ways to get out of that to help pay down debt, reach out to us, because we might be able to talk you through some steps, or maybe get you to think in other ideas to make that sacrifice. But that was a big sacrifice for us.
Huge.
That was really huge.
And then we sold our house.
Yes.
And that was absolutely crazy. I have no regrets, but people don't need to sacrifice on this level. But this is how far we did it, because that's where we were at. So I want to go back in time.
Yeah.
Because you had a moment when things just changed for you. And we had briefly talked about the possibility of moving to this area
For sure.
for a few years. We
sure.
went on Zillow, but it was never a serious conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then things switched for you. So how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I had been tossing it up for a little bit, thinking, okay, what does it look like, as we want to begin to build our family a little bit more. We weren't pregnant with Kennedy yet, but we knew we wanted to, try again soon. And it might be nice to be closer to your mom because she's retired and can help us a little bit more, versus down there, all of my family is still working. So, we thought moving up here would be a little bit more beneficial, could save some money. We could sell our home and pay off some debt. But what really clicked for me was one day I was going through our files and I saw the letter that my father had written my brother and I in the event of his death. And he did pass away when we were 17. So we received this letter from a friend who, was safekeeping it, and he brought my mom a letter, my sister a letter, and then a letter from my brother and I. And in the letter, my dad just shared how proud he was of my brother and I. And my parents split when I was 5. They were, I think my mom did a really good job giving my dad every opportunity to be in our lives when she really didn't need to. I mean, he never paid child support. He just wasn't very great as a father when it came to supporting the family. And he was out of my life as a figure really at age 13. And then we talked a little bit on the phone, but I didn't see him again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I got this letter from him where he talked about how proud of my brother and I he was, and how exciting it was to watch us grow up and have our own language and play together. And, he wanted us to be there for my mom and to be there for my sister and to grow into good men, which I think we are now. Shout out my brother, who I'm hoping is listening. I think he's a rock star. But, I read that and it made me think about Calliope and the time that I want with Calliope. And at the time, I was still working at the restaurant, and I had just quit my 3rd job because COVID got, the pandemic stopped my 3rd job, which was going to be catering. But I had just quit that job. And I realized I'm having 3 jobs to support my family living here. when all I want to do is quit every single job and spend every waking moment with my wife and baby. Like, Calliope is the coolest. And that's all I wanted to do was be around her.
Yeah.
And this letter really showed me that had my dad made one or two more good choices in his life, or the right choice, or a better decision, he would have gotten more time with me, my brother, my sister, my mom as a family. And there was no way I was going to sacrifice that. Now, you and I are not going to get divorced. We're not planning on separating. You know, my parents separated. But that was important to me to realize, wait a minute. I'm going to go to whatever place gives me more time with my family. And it's here. And so that was a hard decision. That's the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. But it was the right decision right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I talk about them often, our friends Mike and Maggie from Friends on Fire, but you know, both of them said in an episode, nothing is forever. We don't have to live in this county forever, away from my hometown forever. We can always go back. We can go back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. We can retire to there, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But right now, when my babies are at home, I want to be home with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want a second job. And I love serving tables, but I don't want to serve tables. So that was a hard sacrifice. But that's how we ended up selling the house.
Yeah.
And I remember I read the letter, started freaking bawling, and came out to you in the kitchen and was like, yo, we're selling the house. It's the right decision. And you were like, really? And
that was like in August or so.
Yeah.
Last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought about selling the house for a long time. And we told our family around maybe September, October or so. And then we didn't really like take action steps to do it until like January.
Yeah.
And it just is crazy because there's no way I would have sold my car.
Yeah.
If you asked me 3 years ago. And then we sold our house. And I'm able to look back at all of the sacrifices that we made. We're now on the other side. You don't have a second job. I'm able to stay home with our kids. We are virtually debt free. I mean, it was worth it. It was worth every single thing.
Absolutely.
And like I said, you don't have to go to these extremes. You can just start small. But we did start small, and then it grew, and we wanted more. We wanted to get out of debt so bad, we were willing to do these things.
Yeah.
And some people might not want it that bad. Maybe they just want to pay one thing off, and it's not as extreme. We were really, really deep in debt.
Yeah. We had made a lot of mistakes. Not many people have made as many mistakes as we have.
A lot. By the time our student loans are actually paid off, we will have paid off $222,000.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't minimal. It was a lot.
And there was a lot of debt.
And it was the only way not the only way. We could have done it a different way and had both of us work multiple jobs and done things differently. We could have gotten a roommate, whatever. But for us, this was the fastest way to get out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really happy that we did. There were some deep, deep sacrifices, but
yeah.
I'm looking back and I'm happy.
I am too. So we want to share just a few key action steps to you listeners that helped us on our journey and that might help you. Again, we had a lot of debt. We made some weird, crazy changes to try and get out of that debt. And it may not be for you, and that's totally cool. You are on your own debt-free journey, and we are here supporting you, doing whatever we can to give you motivation. But we'd like to give you just a couple action steps as you are on your debt-free journey, or ways that you can maybe kickstart your debt-free journey. So like Haley has said throughout this entire episode, start small. Pick one item in your budget. Pick one thing that you know you can sacrifice, and you've got to fully sacrifice it. You've got to go cold turkey on it. You can't have one toe in the water, one on dry land. You've got to dive on in. So let's say you watch Netflix and Hulu, but you still have cable. Cut the cable. Go to Netflix and Hulu for 1 year. Tell the kids, hey, we're watching Coco Melon and Veggie Tales or whatever you've got on Netflix, Bubble Guppies, whatever you got to watch, right? That's what you're going to watch. You're going to cut cable and you're going to save $120 a month simply by cutting your cable bill. Start small. Pick one thing you know you can cut.
And it's not forever.
And make that sacrifice. It's not forever.
We cut our cable for almost 2 years, and now we have cable again.
Now we got cable back, and my wife is loving her Teen Mom and Bachelorette and
It's
Married at First Sight and 90 Day Fiance and Me, Myself, and My Ex or whatever the show
okay.
you is.
Okay, you're throwing me under the bus here. I love trash TV. So
Self-care.
So, yeah.
This should have been in the self-care episode.
Hashtag-
Trash TV.
yes. Hashtag self-care. That's what's up.
Hashtag
Okay.
trash TV.
Another action step is to talk to people, build a community, whether it means talking to your friends or talking to me privately in the DMs, and you don't tell anyone else about your debt journey. We can literally just have a conversation back and forth. I can be your soundboard. Talk to someone and grieve the life that you envisioned, because a lot of this comes back to the shame and the guilt. You know, we want all these nice fancy things. You can literally have all those things eventually. You cannot have them all at the same time when you're trying to get out of a hole.
Yeah.
So really think like, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 1 year? I can get there, but I'm going to have to do some things in the meantime.
Yeah. And when you give those things up, I want to stress what Haley said there. She said, grieve that vision of what you wanted. It is okay to say, this sucks.
Yeah.
This really sucks. I really like coming home and watching TV, or I really like getting the McDonald's iced coffee and breakfast sandwich on the way to work. And it sucks that I'm waking up and making my own sandwich and iced coffee. I don't like this. It's okay to say that. It's okay to have those feelings. You've got to approach those feelings. You've got to grieve those feelings. It sucks selling this Toyota 4Runner. I think you say that in the video as they're driving away from our bank.
I said this hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts really bad.
But it's a good hurt. It was a big sacrifice, but we felt it and we grieved that feeling so that we can be more fulfilled later on.
Then I was really happy when I paid for the student loans.
Yeah.
In one big lump
literally
sum.
text me later like, I just paid all those student loans and like my heart feels good again. And that's awesome.
The circle of paying off debt life.
For real. So the final action step we want to leave with y'all is set attainable goals.
Like seriously, realistic, within good time frame.
Yeah. So if you need to look up SMART goals, it's an acronym. It's specific, measurable, attainable. I think it's realistic and time specific. You can look up how you can set a goal for yourself of what you want that line item that you're going to cut to look like, or what you want that goal to look like. Hey, me and my family will stick to a $800 food budget for the next 5 months to see what it changes in our budget, to see what we can save up from that, whatever it may be. Just set attainable goals, because if you set them too high, you're not going to hit them. And what happens when we don't hit them? We go back to that idea of sacrifice and feeling guilt and shame and embarrassment because we failed. And you don't want to have that. You want to hit them and be like, crush that goal. Look at me go. Next goal, next goal, next goal. And then start to progress from there.
There's a podcast I listen to, EmpowerHER podcast with Kacia Fitzgerald. And she frequently talks about setting a goal, making it happen, and every time you do that, you put a little deposit into your confidence bucket.
Love it.
And then eventually it grows, and it grows, and it grows. And if you set a goal, and you say you're going to do something, and you do it, you're telling yourself, okay, I can do this. And then you do it again. And then you feel more and more confident to make really wild decisions like sell your car and your house.
Yeah.
It did not happen overnight. It happened over like a 2-year period. And it started with, okay, we're cutting Sunday breakfast. And then it grew. So you put those deposits in your confidence bucket, and then you'll feel better.
I like to think of it as, and this is so funny because we're a financial podcast, but as a bank metaphor. When you're putting a deposit into the bank of reaching those goals, you have a larger amount in the bank. So when you need to tap into it, maybe when your confidence is shot, maybe when you're not feeling so good, you then take a withdrawal and you think, you know what? I've done some really good things. I've made some really good choices. I've made some really big sacrifices. And because I've made those deposits, I can handle this adversity a little bit more. I can not let this linger quite as long. So that's really cool that you use that deposit bucket too. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
Deposits in your confidence bucket.
Yeah.
Confidence in your whatever. If you really don't know even where to start with this, and you're like, I don't even know where I would cut any of that, I want you to send me a message on Instagram so we can chat. Maybe we can do coaching if you want to go that route. Maybe we can just have a conversation depending on where you are. But I want to be here as a support for you to help you figure out, like, what are these things that you can cut? You might not even be thinking like, oh, that's useless. I could take that out of the budget, because sometimes you do need an extra person to like look over things with you. And I would like to do that if you guys need help.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's always beneficial to have an extra set of eyes on something, or a soundboard to bounce ideas off of. Always important. You guys, this has been a little bit longer of an episode, but it's something we are so passionate about, because we know how it feels to make those sacrifices. We know how hard it is and the difficulties that go behind it, but we really wanted to speak that into you so that maybe you can go and take those first few steps. So if you do get something from this or take any of those steps, please reach out to us. Let us know. We want to be cheerleaders in your corner. We want to support you along the ride, along the journey. We want to do what we can to hype you up, because people have been hyping us up for over a year now, and it's been massively beneficial for our success. So
we are your hype people.
We are your hype people. We are your cheerleading extraordinaires. I'm just not the flyer.
I want to give
I'll
you
be
some
the
pom
base.
poms.
Okay, I'm just gonna be the base. I'm not. You're not throwing me up in the air.
Oh, I'll throw you.
Okay.
I'm buff. Yeah, you called me. You said I wasn't athletic today.
Okay, now I'm in trouble. We should end this podcast before I get more in trouble. This sounds like a marriage thing we should hash out. Maybe not over live air. So, all right, you guys, that's gonna do it for this episode of The Price of Avocado Toast. As always, we are so thankful to have had this conversation with you. We're so thankful to be part of this community. Please send me your thoughts and prayers, because I might be in trouble at the end of this episode. Oh, wonderful. That's good news. Happy budgeting.
You've got this, Toasties.
Thanks for listening to The Price of Avocado Toast. If you vibed with this episode, share it with a friend that you're comfortable having money talks with. And if you don't mind, we'd love if you could rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
If you're in need of my support as a financial coach, message me on Instagram. I'd love to help in any way that I can. Until next time.